Hi, and welcome back to another AnyRPG Unity C# tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be demonstrating how to fix a common problem that you can encounter in your games, and that is what to do when your health bar, or also known as your nameplate, gets a little laggy and jittery when your character is moving. First, I'm going to load up a game that I'm working on, and I'm just going to demonstrate the issue. And I'll show you basically what we're looking for, and then we'll go through the code to fix the problem. So you can see when my player moves here, I'm just going to position the mouse over top of the P, and you can see when I move him right that the nameplate sort of jumps to the right, and when I move him left, the nameplate jumps far to the left, way past where the mouse cursor is. Similarly, when I move forward, the nameplate jumps up above the mouse cursor, and when I move back, the nameplate jumps down below the mouse cursor. The problem gets even worse when your character goes upstairs. The nameplate just looks like it's having a seizure and just jumps all over the place constantly. And this is really distracting when you're playing your game to have this thing constantly jumping around like this. And it was something that I was actually struggling with for a little while until I basically got a hint from some Google searching about needing to synchronize your UI elements with your camera's update method. Now, you'll get some interesting advice like this, that the best place to synchronize your target is in late update, but just make sure you're not also moving your camera in late update, which of course is totally contrary to most of the advice that you're gonna get. It's generally considered a really good idea to move your camera in late update, and that's what I'm doing. I'm also moving my UI elements in late update, and that actually causes a bit of a problem. And to debug this, we can see what's actually happening here by looking at some debug messages. In the Unity nameplate controller here that I've got that controls my nameplates, I'm using this nice little function called time.frameCount to basically show me what frame the debug messages are coming in. And this way, instead of just having a bunch of debug messages and not really understanding how they relate to what frame you're showing, you can actually see the frame number here. So let's take a look at these nameplates here. I've got a bunch of nameplates. We start frame 1797, and the nameplates are running their late update method, and then my player runs his late update method, and then the camera controller runs its late update method. Now, this is a bit of a problem because what we actually want is for the camera controller's late update method to run first. And this is because the way that you're going to be calculating nameplate positions for the most part is you'll be using this function here called world to screen point, which will basically convert whatever's over top of your character's head into a point on the screen. But this is actually called from your camera. So when you're looking at your game, what's happening here is my nameplate is going to be calculated based on the camera's current position, and then the camera is actually going to jump over right after that nameplate calculation happens. And when the whole frame is rendered, then the nameplate is going to be rendered in reference to what that camera's position was before it did this update, not after. So basically what you want to do is you want your camera to be running first before these nameplate controller updates happen, and then you want all the nameplate controller updates to happen. Now in Unity you can set script execution orders, but I'm not really a fan of that as that involves your project settings. So if someone basically was to say, for example, download the source code to this project from GitHub, you can find that right here, then you're basically not going to have those project settings, and you'd have to do a whole bunch of setup. So there's actually a really easy way to fix this, and I'll just go through the code for that now. So what we're going to do is I already have a nameplate manager, and my nameplate manager is the thing that basically spawns and manages all of my nameplates. And I have a system event manager as well. So in my camera's late update method, because we want to make sure that the camera is going to run first, we're just going to leave the camera updating in late update like normal. So there it is right there. Let me just zoom in a little bit here so you can see the code a little better. And at the very bottom of it, I'm going to do this right here, this system event manager.trigger event. And I'll just show you the system event manager code really quickly. It's in GitHub, and the link to that is in the video description. So we'll just look at it really quickly here. But basically what the system event manager is doing is it has these three methods here called start listening, stop listening, and trigger events. And you can basically just create any event you want by sending strings to it and defining the event name. So when my late update on my camera controller is complete, I'm going to trigger this after camera update event. And all we have to do is just put that line of code in there and it's going to trigger the event. Then my nameplate manager in its awake method is actually going to ask the system event manager to start listening for this event. And the really great thing here is it doesn't really matter what order these are run in because I'm not subscribing to like a hard-coded event. So I can actually start listening to events that don't even exist yet. So this code is just safe to run basically anytime that you want. And when I start listening and I get that after camera update event, it's going to call the handle after camera update method. And all my handle camera after update method does is basically takes the event parameter properties from that event, which we can totally ignore because we don't need them. Well, we just need the raw event, not any data that came with it. And I'm just going to call update nameplates here. So we're just going to go through a loop for every nameplate controller and then call update position. And then we'll just go to the nameplate controller. And I'm just going to comment out late update, and I'm actually just going to change that function's name to update position. So by default, Unity will run update, and then it'll run late update, but we don't want Unity to run this. We actually want this update position call for our nameplate to be handled entirely manually. So we're just going to, comment out late update, comment out update, change the name. And so what's going to happen here basically is the way that everything's going to go is my camera is going to run its late update method. It's basically going to set its wanted position and then either jump to the wanted position or smooth to the wanted position, however I've got it configured. And finally, after its position update is complete, then it's going to run and trigger this after camera update method, at which point my nameplate manager, having listened to it, will be calling this function and then this function, looping through the nameplate controllers and then updating their position. So let's just save that and press play and see the difference in how smooth the nameplate is versus how jagged the nameplate was before. And we'll just let it compile here. And what we're also looking for is in these debug messages, we're looking to make sure that in whatever frame we're in, that the camera controller is the first event we see in our log in that frame, and then that the nameplate controller is running their updates afterwards. And we don't have this sort of randomness where half the nameplate controllers run their update and then the camera controller and then the other half, because that's not really what we want. We want it to be a little more deterministic than that. So we'll press play, click on new game. Just hit escape to get out of the cutscene, and then now let's take a look. I'm going to put my mouse over top of the P again, and I'm going to move to the right. I'm going to move to the left, I'm going to move back, and I'm going to move forward, and you can see that my nameplate is not jumping around at all, just not even the slightest bit of lag, not even the slightest jumpiness. Let's go ahead and take a run up the stairs here, and this is beautiful. It's just completely smooth. I can jump with my character. It just like stays glued to the character's head, and I can spin around in circles, do some jump spins, and everything is looking just amazing here. So let's see, fall off a ridge. Yeah, good. So basically that's how you can fix nameplate lag and jitter. And if you happen to need to use a camera and need to also use UI elements, and you happen to need to do more than one thing in your late update method, then you can just use this method of running your late update on your camera, then just triggering an event telling whoever's listening to it that the camera's update is completed, and then subscribe to that and do whatever you need now that the camera's position is set and you can properly use that screen to world point. If we look at the actual frame here, let's just look at the very last frame, frame 1513. You can see that the camera controller is now running its late update first, and then all of the nameplate controllers are nicely running their nameplate or their update methods. This should actually not say late update, should actually say update position, because we changed the name now. But essentially, I'm sure you get the idea. Basically, we now have a nice ordered execution, and we managed to do that without actually having to go and change our project settings, meaning that, you know, if someone just downloads this from GitHub, then hopefully it'll be a little easier for it to run for them. So as always, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, then don't forget to thumbs up the video or subscribe to the AnyRPG YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.